Splatter movies are films that exist for the purpose of highlighting very creative methods of killing off a young teen cast.
Just the unfettered release of innards. That can be so over the top that it's fun.
The splatter film has always been with us. This is what people wanted to see.
G-O-R-E.
This film is very much like that. Kind of like a roller coaster. You know it's going to freak you out, but you get on it anyways.
The nature of the movie, you want to see more, and you want it to be more graphic and more shocking.
The marriage between makeup effects and visual effects is creating a seamless effect.
The audience knows that death could manifest itself in any way, so they're looking to see how we're going to kill him. Hopefully we've taken it to another level.
From 1897 to 1968, a theater was established in Paris called the Theater of Grand Guignol, a place where aristocrats and common folk could both see in vignette form a series of appalling violent acts done as entertainment. A typical kind of night at the Grand Guignol, an eye would be scooped out and thrown toward the audience, or a leg would just be hacked off. The blood, which of course drenched this theater, would be so realistic that people frequently, women and men, would literally faint. They went for more and more gore, and the more gore they went for, the more the audiences ate it up.
This is France having lived through the revolution. This was a way for them to act out against figures of power, decapitated and disemboweled and cut to pieces. And it was, I think, a necessary thing for them.
Grand Guignol was letting people enjoy vicariously what the ancient Romans enjoyed in person. People wanted to see these people die in front of them, that bloodlust, which lurks in the human psyche. Grand Guignol was certainly the early ancestor of us all.
One of the early schools of horror was expressionist horror, where it was far more suggestive with shadows and lighting. You had things like Nosferatu. Even with the Universal monsters, the kills were far more suggested. You would go to shadows on the walls. If they'd had that sort of extreme gore right off the bat, it really would have been, I think, too much for an audience to take.
These films come in cycles. It was just a matter of time when we would go a little further. In 1957, Hammer Films of England took the old Universal horror films that were all black and white, updated them, gave them sex, gave them color, and gave them overt violence.
Now, if you've got vivid color, why not throw some red in there and see how it looks?
Psycho from 1960 was black and white, the Hitchcock movie. His gore took place in a shower. People said, oh my goodness, how could they do that? So yes, I would certainly accept Psycho as a film that suggested what was to come later. But it wasn't like Blood Feast where the tongue gets pulled out.
Herschell Gordon Lewis is, I think, the consummate exploitation filmmaker. Very aware of the need to sell a ticket in order to justify making the next film.
In 1960, Lewis started working with David Friedman, who was an ex-carnival barker. Carnivals of the 1920s and 30s that used to shock Midwestern towns.
What I learned from Dave Friedman was a P.T. Barnum approach of fearlessness to shoot things that without Dave I might never have had the courage to shoot. At the time, there was censorship against nudity. There was no censorship against gore because it didn't exist. Who would ever dream that someone would shoot a picture like this with blood gushing? Blood Feast was the first. We had department store mannequins, which we would stuff with glop. It made people sick. The key scene in Blood Feast, he rips the tongue out of a girl's mouth. He pulls out the tongue and all the glop comes out. That scene staggered people. Yes, the effects by today's standard, using department store mannequins and chicken skin, were laughable. But the picture itself was hard and brilliant.
With Blood Feast, he really tapped into an unconscious response in his audience, which was, show me something that I'm not supposed to see. The violence was there, the blood was there, and it made a fortune.
I don't deny and I don't cringe anymore about being called the godfather of gore. I wear that mantle with some degree of pride. People say, oh, you're the guy who started it all. How could anybody be unhappy with that?
When guys like Herschell Gordon Lewis began to create the outer envelope of exploitation, other filmmakers start to get into the business, and very quickly things escalated.
By 1968, George Romero did Night of the Living Dead. The ghouls are very realistic, and because it's black and white, you just can't quite make out what they're eating, but it sure looks disgusting.
There's no denying the impact of The Exorcist the first time on an audience, and seeing the little girl's head spin around. It was shocking because it was done at such a high level of realism. When you would do the biggest, bloodiest versions, those would be the ones that the crowds would go to. You could see how the mainstream was beginning to embrace these things. The Omen very much followed the formula of incredibly creative and innovative kills, slicing off of David Warner's head.
A lot of the splatter films became body count movies.
And suddenly, there it was, and no looking away from it, no flinching. Really started to see in the early to mid-90s the transition into using digital effects. In Jurassic Park, part of the shock of that film was seeing a guy torn in half for the first time.
The effects got better and better.
We are in the third generation of gore, in which everything is possible.
The first Final Destination was very clever in the way it took the genre of the teen body count movie. Instead of a man in a hockey mask, you have something that none of us really have a handle on. It's the ultimate stalker, death.
There's a moment involving a train, really startling. It is one of the great shock effects from that film.
And if you want to waste your life beating the shit out of Alex every time you see him, then you can just drop fucking dead.
Maybe the greatest death in any film of all time. I just can't say enough good things about the bus death in the first movie.
I mean, I took my DVD player and played it frame by frame, and I didn't see the transition to dummy to the real person. I thought it was great.
After the success of the first Final Destination, we sat down and tried to figure out what we could possibly do to continue the franchise. We knew at its core that the sequences, the death sequences, were really what people were going to see. The writers, who were twisted and sick beyond hope and reason, were able to completely go bananas and come up with the most bizarre and yet completely interconnected ways that the characters are killed.
7 crazy deaths. Totally intricate with the Rube Goldberg puzzle-like mentality that would even mislead the viewer to thinking they were going to see a death go one way and then it would totally go the other way.
We tried to have some situations in this movie where there's things that you feel comfortable with every day. Kind of turn the tables on that stuff and have that stuff be things that now you're uncomfortable with.
We do it in broad daylight. There's none of this mood that nighttime or darkness creates. No, we do it in broad daylight in everyday experiences. It sounds kind of grotesque, but it's fun.
Coming up with how you kill people is sort of a macabre thing to do. Just the mind that would think about, well, how can we make this work and how do we do this? When it came time to find a director for this project, David Ellis's name came forward because of his experience doing pretty much every action scene in the last 15 years that you can recall. The SUV kidnapping scene from Clear and Present Danger, or the Quidditch match from Harry Potter.
As a second unit director, directing all the big second units that I've been fortunate to be involved in, you understand action, you understand how to execute it.
Originally, we had conceived of about 86 visual effects shots, And by the end, I just did a tally just very recently. We had 189.
I always start with a storyboard, which everybody's approved and really comes out directly out of David's head. If he has his ultimate wish, this is the way he would like a shot to be covered. No matter how technically difficult it may be, that's what I try to give him. It all comes down to some really basic concepts. Shoot as much as you can practical, or get the actors on a green screen stage, or shoot as many pieces as you can practically, and then go into the computer and start mimicking reality.
Basically, this movie's about killing people for us. How are we going to make the audience think this was exactly real?
As much as the first movie had a plane crash, we had to have a commensurate opening sequence. What other way than the car crash? Every time you get in a car, you never know what's going to happen. You have so little control. The sequence itself took 11 days to shoot. We had about 4.5 miles of highway that was ours. We could do whatever we wanted with it.
It's big. It's very big. There's 4 or 5 major car wrecks in a span of probably a few minutes on film.
It was all action every day. A lot of excitement and buzz. The physical effect had to work out with the stunt guy doing the right thing with the right timing of the explosion.
Everybody's, oh, it's so planned. Well, a lot of it's by the seat of your pants, too. So don't anybody take it lightly. This is serious, so just back up. You know, that's why it's called stunts.
When the red SUV is doing its really horrifying flips, there is a live person who is driving that. We had dummies for the other people so that their arms and hands and hair could be flipping all over the place. It's a pretty scary undertaking.
Of all the sequences in the film, the logs were an element that we did not see. The logs were something that we created.
We did a test to first drop the logs, just to see what the hell dropping, 4,000-pound logs would look like. It's scary, but they kind of fall off, and then they go sliding off the road. The logs don't bounce and drop the way that we needed them to dramatically set up the rest of the sequence. So we knew that they had to be digitally created logs.
The first shot is what we call the hero shot. This is the point where the action starts, and this is it right here. Pretty much everything you see aside from the truck and the road, everything else is CG. The chain falling, and all these particles, and all the reflections. We probably have 20-25 layers in one shot like that easily.
Once we got into the log sequences, started feeling very confident, then we started doing more and more difficult things just because we could.
When the log goes through the police car and takes off poor Thomas's head, it goes out the back. It was done sort of in a way that was practical, and there was a dummy in there.
But the dummy was too visible, so we had to replace with the real actor's face that we took from another shot, and the mouth was taken from another shot.
And then we also grabbed one frame of the static log that was part of the original plate. We were able to warp it so that it had a rotation and had it make contact with the windshield exactly when the original static log hit the windshield so the glass would smash. We just kept doing little things that you'll never know.
Most of the CG during the opening crash is wire removal. When the young guy is being dragged and the bike is following him, they were all tied onto a wire. We just digitally erased the wire. But that still is a real guy going, ah!
There's a section where the tractor trailer comes through a wall of fire, jackknifed. There was no truck jackknife. That was just a truck driving through a wall of fire, which was about maybe a quarter or half the size it is now.
I wanted it to mask the fact that the truck was coming at us, so we enhanced our practical fire with CG fire.
We shot a miniature trailer with a black box cab so that black box would affect the miniature fire the way the real truck did. We added fire in the foreground, some fire burning on the ground here, extra debris, and here comes the truck from hell.
In this shot, these two people are on green screen. There's roughly 6-7 layers of different elements in this shot. The truck was a separate element. The actual kid coming up here was a separate element because obviously that would be his last movie if he would be there. All the flame and explosions were actually comped after the fact. So we colorized the whole environment to reflect the fire exploding.
They're still called dummies. They're a little more than just your average floppy dummy. We like to call them duplicates, actor duplicates. The many steps that are involved in building a duplicate of an actor are, first we get the actor in the shop. We go through a process of making molds of their head, their body, their hands, all the details that are required to be incorporated into the final version of them in synthetic form. Once we have the molds of the actor, we go through a process of creating an expression on each of the heads. It's usually the expression that the character will have just prior to the impact, just a surprise look or whatever's necessary. For Final Destination, I had the internal organs of a pig delivered to the shop, and it came in this embryonic sac that when we cut it open, we just all put our hands in there and documented the whole thing and just analyzed whatever we can find in there. It was a great learning experience because we had that visual reference that we can just put that aside and then begin the process of sculpting each of the organs. If we don't think about those details, then we're going to have, again, the situation where we have a Benny Hill dummy or a classic Monty Python dummy. Add teeth, add details of eyebrows, punch little hairs into the eyelashes, then finally create the eyes. If the eyes don't look right, then nothing else is going to look right about the body. The life of the whole dummy is in one little ball the size of a grape that we pop into the head at the last minute, take it to set, and hopefully everybody's wowed by the experience. In the case of Evan, Jesus Christ! We called that particular gag Evan versus the ladder. It was quite disgusting. Within the skull, we had a condom that was tightly filled with a mixture of raw ground beef, raw egg, lots of olive oil, and of course blood packs. And as soon as the ladder penetrates the skin, everything just explodes out of that eye socket.
Evan's death was pretty straightforward. What we did first was we did Evan slipping and falling and hitting the ground, and once we established him on the ground, then we did a pass with him on the ground with no ladder and a green screen in the background. Then we did a pass with a dummy head on the ground and actually doing the impact with the ladder going through the dummy's eye. Then what they did is they did a composite. They took just the part of the eye and where the impact of the fire escape going through the eye from the dummy and composited that onto the first pass with Evan's face. So we're using the dummy's eye in the actual impact of the fire escape, and then we're using the actor's face to react and do the reaction to getting hit.
Yeah.
Oh my God, have you met this kid? He is the sweetest little guy. He's just got this, he's always happy and everything's excellent, and that's this little friend of mine, James, who plays my son Tim. He's so happy to be here. Too bad he has to die.
I hate to blow it, but it's actually a dummy that gets crushed, not little Timmy. We tried to use him, but they didn't go for it.
Tim versus the Glass, the manufacturing that we produced for the show were 3 duplicates of the actor. They were hollow shells. We had placed tightly wound, once again, condoms with all the trimmings. We're designing a body here and engineering it in a way so that when the glass hits it from the head, everything from the head down accordionizes and buckles in a very realistic fashion.
We had the actor on location looking up to a camera, and we established him in the spot, and then we took him out and had the dummy already looking up and used just the last few frames of the glass actually impacting the real dummy.
And interesting, we did it once the first time, and it looked great, but there wasn't really enough blood. His little legs kind of stood up because they hadn't quite appropriately scored the dowels in his legs to snap. So when we did it again, we added little explosive charges, a little more goo inside. No CGI, no enhancement.
To further that believability, what we did was we increased the number of pigeons flying in the frame. And Timmy's running across the ground, pigeons that are all over the ground. There were a tenth of as many on the ground when he ran.
We shot green screen pigeons. We got the same pigeon handlers and their boxes and all the pigeons. We needed some to fly off the ground. We needed some to fly at camera, away from camera, zigzagging back across, then composited them.
We laid them into the frame wherever we needed them. You wouldn't just necessarily watch the kid being crushed. You'd be distracted at times by other movement in the frame.
We wanted to help also, when Nora, the mom, is crying and freaking out, it would be even more wrenching if the pigeons are flying right by her. So we're looking for ways to heighten the emotional impact of these deaths.
A man with hooks is gonna kill you.
What is it, Nora?
It was really neat to actually be able to, walk off the elevator and experience the sensation of, being trapped on death by braid kind of thing. I found it very strangely exhilarating, experiencing what could have been my demise.
Nora in the elevator.
Hey, come on, Mark.
Nora was pretty straightforward. We had a stunt girl in a harness that was being yanked up by the elevator. We did shots of the elevator's doors coming right at cameras. And then we took the actress, had her head in the elevator for all of her reactions to being trapped. Then we did one simple CG shot with the stunt girl with the green screen hood on as she just fell away from the elevator as her head is taken off.
First plate is the doors closing. Second plate is her falling out on her head. The third plate is we shot some blood squirts, squirted onto the door.
It was a green sock, so we got rid of all the green in the shot, which made her head effectively go away. And then we had to add, of course, for all the gore meisters, a little neck piece and then a spray of a little rooster tail of blood that flies out.
It sounds odd, but we did look at every scene and say to ourselves, well, it's cool and it's fun, but is it too much? In one construction, the elevator not only went up, but it came back down and went back up again and came back down, and we decided that's just too much, so we just made it continually go up until it came off. It became too grotesque. It became too mean-spirited.
Personal favorite, absolutely the airbag. There's an airbag head kebab thing.
Could you be a little quieter with that thing, please?
Yeah, sure. I'll just put it on quiet mode.
That would be good.
That's my favorite death.
It seemed to be a little creepy, yeah, like a spear through the middle of my forehead.
Yeah, can I get a stone? Go for it.
I'm really bored with this whole death thing, honestly.
We didn't actually impale Cat, but we used portions of Cat in the truck in forward movement before the bag exploded so that your eye is following the real Cat. And when the bag explodes, that's a dummy.
Cat was a dummy that we had produced. It was from the waist up of the actress. And as soon as the airbag inflates, the body flings back and the head goes straight back into the spike.
Then when we come back out, we've transitioned back to the real Cat so that she's with the prosthetic through her head.
It's pretty easy to figure out how you did that. You just stuck a pipe piece on the actress's head and she sits really still.
I'll just be happy to be able to watch it from this side, like, hey, look at that, it's funny. Okay.
Rory!
I have a really cool death, which is awesome. Sliced in three, you see my guts. I wonder what they think my guts look like.
Every element of that was created. The exploding van, the fence posts were created, the flying wire over Thomas's head.
We had planned the fence posts and the barbed wire always to be CG. And that wasn't a problem. The issue was, okay, how are we going to slice Rory the best way? dang, that's going to be hard.
We were considering lots of electronic ways of cutting Jonathan Cherry into pieces and then digitally breaking his body apart.
Joe all of a sudden stopped and said, wait a minute, what if we do this? And he sketched out a drawing with the side profile of a dummy with its legs to torso up to the neck area, and then he had Rory on a platform leaning in like this.
We came up with this concept of devising a partial puppet that the actor could actually wear. It was broken up into 3 individual segments. From the sternum up, that was the actor with his head, his shoulders, and his arms sticking out of this puppet. The actor is the main part of the whole gag. Just prior to closing up the body, once the actor was inside of it, we were able to open up a trapdoor and put all kinds of intestines inside and lung.
And then they had positioned and get stacked up there, just kind of leaning over bizarrely. 1, 2, 3, pull. And one guy pulls this way, he falls down that way.
In the post-production process, we can get rid of all the other people that were involved in that particular gag that are seamlessly blended away and removed.
There's a couple of things that made it work. We added more digital blood coming out, and Bill made a prosthetic hand with blood coming out, and we were able to include that as well. And all the pieces kind of came together and then fell apart.
Eugene and Clear in the hospital.
A complete manufacture. I mean, we of course you can't burn her face off.
Originally a light was just going to come up on her face, but the nature of the movie, you want to see more, and you want it to be more graphic and more shocking. We ended up digitally searing all of her skin off and burning her hair, and then the fireball takes us out of the scene. The explosion, as big as it was, on film it didn't look huge, because it was a very long corridor and it kind of poops out, because that's what fire does. So what we had to do was something that fire would never do, which is to create a fireball that travels all the way down 100 feet of corridor. So we built a big, long, black, miniature version of the hallway, so that the only thing that we would see on the film is the fire, and shoot it at 150 frames, thereby slowing it down a whole lot, thereby making it seem much bigger than it really is. And then we had to have Clear's body inside that fireball.
A full cast of Clear. We had that on cables to ratchet it back like she's being blown by the explosions. And then we enhanced those shots later with visual effects.
We put a 3D rack in there, and that tumbles down and goes right over our heroes' heads. And then the body lands right in front of them, charred, and the rack lands behind them.
Luckily for me, I don't get to see myself die. When it's time to go, it's time to go. You have no control over that.
Brian, I think you better go check that barbecue.
The last death that we have in the movie, poor little Brian, that was a practical effect. It was a dummy with blood and guts and all that kind of stuff, and a fake barbecue that we built, and we just blew the shit out of it. Then we did the composite for the foreground, which was everyone's reaction with big air mortars blowing wind at them so their hair would blow and everything as they turn away from the explosion. For the final piece, we had Bill make a little arm that we put A and B smoke on, which is these 2 little liquids. Once you put them together, they smoke. It looks like smoke. So that's the DES of FD2. It's amazing what they can do. I mean, with prosthetics and with visual effects, it blows my mind.
When I shot Blood Feast, we had department store mannequins. That was then, and this is now.
If I think about it, I can't believe you really did it.
Just wham.
I think the future of this is endless.
We saw a lot of people for Kimberly, and we saw a lot of actresses, some pretty big names came after, wanting to be in the movie. But we had to find somebody that was sensitive, vulnerable. Once we saw tape on AJ and then we brought her in, she just nailed it.
You guys all heard about Flight 180, right? How the kid got the survivors off the plane?
You mean Alex Browning?
Yeah. My premonition is just like his.
With AJ Cook, I think we are the luckiest people on the planet. She's lovely, she's talented, she's doing a terrific job.
A girl that could have some fun because they're going on a trip, they're going to have a good time. Yet somebody that could stand up to Clear and kind of challenge Clear and raise the bar with Clear.
You know what?
What?
I think you're a coward. I think that you hide in here so you don't have to help another living soul. In my opinion, you're already dead.
I feel like we're at the beginning of what is going to be a very long and successful career for her.
It was great to work with my daughter. It was so much fun as a father to be there. You know, we have an incredible relationship that we can actually be with each other every single day, you know, and have fun. And we just looked forward every morning. We got up, got ourselves energized, got each other into the day, and would go just attack at it.
He'd ask me advice about me and my friends, like how we would talk in the car or how we would react to that.
Oh, good one, man. Yeah, you're hilarious. Whatever.
There was a lot of funny dialogue in there that me and my dad had come up with. We just tried to have a lot of fun with it.
Road flares, sunblock, mace.
Condoms, whips, chains.
During shooting, Tawny was there by my side for all of the performances, and I'd turn to her and I'd go, "What do you think?" And she'd go, "Yeah, it was good." Or she'd go, "Dude, let's do one more." Hey, Dad? Yes, sir. Careful, kid.
He'd actually take my 21-year-old advice and incorporate it just to see if it'd work or not.
She came on as my assistant, and now she's a producing partner with me in our future endeavors.
People are just like, I could never work with my dad, but me and my dad get along very well.
Rips and chains. That's nice. Whatever, your dad's cool.
Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on her.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better, thanks.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Hello, the guys are waiting. Watch it! Watch it.
Sorry. My fault.
You want me to drive?
No, I'm good. You're freaking mine? What the hell are you doing?
What is it? What? Are you freaking out?
Look, there's a pile of dead people in it, or there's gonna be. I saw it. Okay, that's it. My turn to drive.
Just relax. You need to chill the fuck out.
Okay, you may be right.
Yeah, of course I am.
One of the things I love about Keegan Connor Tracy is her energy, and I think that the role of Kat needs to embody that kind of self-aware, nervous energy of somebody who is really so self-absorbed that, without being overly malicious, is incredibly rude and incredibly insensitive to the feelings of all those around her.
This cannot be happening, see, because my career is at a peak and I finally met a quality guy.
But doing it with this sort of, glib glee. She's very happy to be incredibly mean to you, but doesn't know that.
Oh, God. I don't know, I'm so thirsty. Didn't you guys have any Fiji or something?
And that is what Keegan brings to this, is that she's able to create a character that you kind of dislike intensely, but you don't dislike so much so that you don't understand why she is the way she is.
Are you doing all in there? Ah! Jesus Christ, you think you can give me the heads up before you do that next time?
Yeah, sure. I'll just put it on quiet mode.
I think that's going to provide an interesting vulnerability at certain times that make you care when she dies, but in some ways be glad that she's dead. Michael Landis. Yeah, baby.
What's going on here?
We'd met with a whole bunch of different people, and at the time he wasn't available. And then through a variety of circumstances, he became available, and we snapped him up, and it was very quick. Within, I think, 36 hours, he was on board.
Today, some loony bitch blocks traffic. He avoids the worst pileup in years. I should be so damn unlucky.
Hey, look, you weren't there. It was weird. She knew that, she knew the log truck was going to shit the bed. She knew.
They called me on a Thursday. They said, go in and read. And I went in and read. And then they hired me Friday, and I was on a plane Sunday.
We just wanted to find someone that was young and that could relate to these kids, so it wasn't an older guy, but still strong enough, and yet sensitive.
Evan Lewis is dead.
I know. I've been getting calls all morning from everyone who was on the on-ramp. Now we're gonna get together at my apartment tonight. Everyone on death's list will be there.
And he was great, and so he's brought a really good kind of balance to that part. Gary Capel and I go way back. We first met on Baywatch when I was directing some second unit on there, and he was a second unit DP. And then we kind of went our different ways, and I worked with a lot of different DPs, and then we came back together. On our first big film together was Waterworld, and Gary has a great background as a DP. After working with him again on Waterworld, I just decided never to not work with him again. Gary and I have done 9 big second units together, and when I got this opportunity, it was also his first film as a first unit DP. What's great is he's also a really good director, and so we talk about more than just the lighting or the camera movement, but he keeps me really honest with everything that we're doing, and he's just kind of like my secret weapon, a guy that I bring with me on every film that I go.
Casting TC as Eugene, which we originally sort of envisioned as sort of a Woody Allen, Nebbishy character, has got 10 times more life than it ever had. It's got 10 times the personality, this charisma that TC brings to it. He's such a great presence.
I mean, the timbre of his voice and the way that he can take the most absurd lines and deliver them with such gravitas that you believe what's happening.
Wait. But this is where it starts to get a little freaky, right? So a month goes by. Everything seems okay. And then all the survivors start to die, one by one.
As a performer, he really is able to work with his eyes. He doesn't have to speak, and that was the great bonus on top of the fact that he's got such a deep, rich speaking voice.
I'm the one that controls my life. Me. Not fate. Me.
He can really say nothing and say even more.
From the first day rehearsals, it was like, that's amazing. That's great.
I control my fate. Me.
I don't know why we're even here. I don't know what you want from me. Some crazy chick blocks the highway with a car, said there'd be an accident, there was. Big deal.
Too funny. But if I was never meant to pull over, we all should have died in that pileup.
Here's what I don't get. Blancmond's death does all this shit to make sure that I win these tickets and end up on Route 18 at exactly the right time for the pileup.
Yeah?
Well, why single me out? What am I in the great scheme of things? It's fucking weird, man. You think I stepped off Flight 180 or something?
One of the things we didn't want to do, because as you are at risk with any sequel, running the risk of regurgitation and just sort of replaying the same movie over and over again, is we had Alex Browning and Claire Rivers, Devon Sawa and Ali Larter. Their characters at the end of the movie were sort of in this position where clearly they were the only two left, and they were clearly in some sort of a relationship that would force them to sort of fight death back to back, sort of the Old West kind of thing. Now, if we did that and started out exactly that same way in part 2, as we were talking about how do we introduce Ali Larter as a character, how do we introduce Devon Sawa as a character, it didn't feel dramatically interesting.
Because in the end, no one can escape death.
They just felt that if we ended the movie with, these two people and then we just pick them up, it's like last week on Final Destination. So we kind of wanted to mix it up and kind of change how we approach this film.
There was one survivor.
The debate was, do we do it to Devon or do we do it to Ali? And really, the truth is, women drive horror movies. It's just sort of a little-known fact that women generally respond to thrillers and horror movies much better than men. And we wanted to create strong female characters, so the decision was made to have Devon Sawa's character, Alex Browning, die off screen before this movie started.
And this is what happened to Alex when I was responsible for him.
The dramatic impact that has on Ali Larter's character is one of the things that made her want to come back to the movie.
Get out. Before you hurt me or yourself.
It positioned her in such a way that she had a much more potent arc and experience to go through during the journey of Final Destination 2.
Get some rest. Mom? Yeah.
You think? You think the guys that were talking to us today were BSing us or what?
Yeah. Some people just need some rewiring, that's all. Lights out.
The doctor's ready for you now.
If he gives me the gas and I wake up with my pants unbuttoned again, we ain't paying.
Tim.
We all should have died in that pilot.
Which means death could be coming for us.
Do you know what? You're all certifiable. Can't believe I've been listening to this crap. Let's go, Tim.
Mom, stop tripping. Yeah, lady, we're just yanking your chain.
Well, then you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Scaring people like that. Let's go.
Alright. You okay?
Y tus trailers. Visita mi canal.
My husband died 4 years ago. And now, Tim. There's nothing left for me.
Look, don't say that, okay?
Do you know what? If I'm supposed to go to heaven and be with my family, I'm okay with that. I can accept it.
You gotta trust me, okay? We can fight this. If we just stick together long enough for her to have her baby.
All right, if you'll excuse me, I have a funeral to plan.
Hello, Claire.
We brought back Tony Todd, who played the mortician in the first film, and sort of like the old man on the mountain who has the information that the young upstarts need, our group goes to visit him to see if they can glean more information about what they're up against.
Come to pick my brain.
Just a simple question and we'll leave you alone with your new friend.
He's just a gentleman who has spent so much time with corpse and elements of the dead that he just thoroughly enjoys what he does. Dead. It's still fresh.
Ugh, I'm not looking forward to that scene because it's in a morgue and there's gonna be all these dead bodies and ugh. Even though it's fake, but it's still, ugh, gross.
People are always most alive just before they die.
And the nipple ring gets pulled out of it. Whoa! Gross.
Some people say there's a balance to everything. For every life, there's a death. For every death, there is a life. Death comes when you don't expect it. It can be the 88-year-old grandfather or the 10-year-old niece. But when it comes, it has to be done with dignity.
Favorite character on paper was Rory.
You know, bust me, bitch.
He's great comic relief. He's got a drug problem. He's funny. It's all that. And Jonathan Cherry is awesome casting because he's just so funny. And the way he delivers these lines, it's like, oh yeah, that's good. That's better.
Calm down, Kimmy. It's not drugs. It's just a little weed.
A lot of fun. Very opposite of me, actually.
What I think will surprise audiences is that for all of the humor and for all of the sort of, itchiness that he has with Cat, there are some moments where he reveals how vulnerable he really is, that the sort of shields come down. And right then and there, you're really going to be sympathetic towards Rory.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Will you take these? And if I die, you just, take all the drugs out of my car and, the paraphernalia and the porno, anything else that's gonna, break my mother's back.
You like him at first because he's the funny guy, but then you care about him because you realize that there's a place that humor comes from that we all share.
Get you to step out of the van, miss.
Are you kidding me? What did I do?
This vehicle's been reported stolen.
What do you mean, Grand Theft Auto? That's insane.
If you wanted to boost the car, you really should have waited till after the birth, no Twinkie defense, but...
My God, Jorge, this is unbelievable. I swear to you, when I get out of here, I'm going to sue his cheating ass off.